I struggle so hard saying the title of this book. Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be talking about and reviewing On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And I'm going to do my best to not have to say that title again because it is a tongue twister for me. I struggle with it every time I try to say it. But anyway, this is the 11th James Bond novel, book. Technically, it is the 10th novel. There's a short story collection mixed in there by Ian Fleming. And I normally don't talk about the movies when I talk about the books. Maybe I should do that a little bit more. But I will mention that this is one of the more interesting Bond films because it is the only time that Bond is played by George Lazenby, I think is how you pronounce it, and that was produced in 1969. And I just think that's interesting that this is his only appearance. When I think of Bond, I really think of Daniel Craig because those are the movies I have seen most recently. It's been a long time since I've gone back and watched some of the, more original James Bond books or James Bond movies. I need to do it. I used to watch them as a kid, that and Indiana Jones. But, we think about these like iconic people playing multiple James Bond roles and, just like being a part of a bunch of movies. But this was his one and only shot. I don't know why. I didn't really look into it, but I don't know. Thought that was kind of a fun fact. But anyway, this is the second book in the trilogy that people kind of refer to as the Blofeld trilogy, where we get like a nice through-line villain with Thunderball, this book, and then You Only Live Twice. See, I avoided saying it again. But, this also revolves around, Blofeld. And that is something I really enjoy about this book, and I think that's a good thing. But yeah, this is the second book in that trilogy, and I'll go ahead and talk about what I like and what I don't like. So I already alluded to it a little bit right before this, but I really do like the through-line character of Blofeld. I think it adds a nice, interesting mix to the story. We do get a lot of villain of the day, monster of the day, whatever you want to call it, kind of stories in James Bond. And in the earlier books, we had Schmerz, which was like the Russian organization. That was kind of the big bad behind all of the bads. Not always, but it was always kind of that looming threat that was out there, kind of stirring the pot in one way or another. And that definitely comes down to some of the post-World War II, Cold War stuff that was going on in Europe during the time that a lot of those books were written. And after, Schmerz is kind of gone from the picture, we get Blofeld and Spectre. And Spectre, I think, is also the organization that is in some of the more modern movies. But having Spectre and Blofeld be there and kind of have that, they are kind of stereotypical, like villainy kind of people, but just having that threat there is a really nice touch, and it's something that I do really enjoy. I do want to say that this book finally got back to having that charm, and that's a great thing. And I think maybe having that through line is part of the reason why that happened. Another reason some of that charm is back, and that's something I use when I talk about this series all the time, is the charm. I think it is because Bond kind of goes back to some of those earlier books that I really, really loved with his characterization. He's in a much different spot in this book, and a lot of different things happen to him. This book opens up with him not happy with his role at MI6 and how things are happening, and it's really partially him writing a resignation letter and saying, I'm going to be done with this. I don't like what's going on. I'm going to move on and, try to go on to bigger and better things. And, just getting some of those emotional beats around that and around the woman of this book, Tracy, which is a whole different thing I will talk about. I don't know, it's just part of what I like. I like getting that little bit of slice of life almost aspect when it comes to these books. So having that is good. And I know that some of that is a me thing. I know some people really don't like that. My favorite James Bond novel is this one right here, Diamonds Are Forever, and I have this super, super nice folio edition that my girlfriend got me for Christmas last year. Here, I'll open it up real quick. It's got the nice, with some nice art mixed around in it. But this is a book that a lot of the Bond fans don't like, and I think this one has that charm and just that differentness that makes me not feel like the movie. I said this in the comments, and I think it was my wrap-up, that I said movie Bond and book Bond are two different people. And this book definitely has more of what I consider book Bond in it than some of the other books that have more movie Bond put into them. And I think that's great. Everything that happens, we just get that more emotional side to Bond. And a lot of that does end up revolving around Tracy and some of the stuff that happens with her, unfortunately, which I'll go into a little bit later. But yeah, it just was nice to have that charm back. I think some of that also comes from just the setup of the story, which I don't think I've done a really good job framing it, but Tracy's dad that Bond ends up interacting with is like a huge criminal enterprise in Europe. And, there's some back and forth between that and just, I don't know, this one felt like a lot more of a spy thriller than an action movie. And some of that comes in with those interactions there where Bond is really kind of playing somebody who he probably shouldn't have a lot of respect for and should kind of want to go after, and he ends up respecting and like having this weird quasi relationship between somebody who he definitely shouldn't have that with, and he does. And all of that is to get information about Blofeld. So you have like more of the spy to it. It's not going in action, boom, boom, all this stuff. And so it's a little bit more of the suave kind of James Bond that I like. And some of that also comes in with how Bond gets to Blofeld in this book is being able to learn a bunch of College of Arms stuff, which is like, I guess it's a big thing in England, Britain, whatever, having a house like coat of arms, seeing if you're related to like some duchess or duke or, royal family stuff. They're obsessed with it over there. Very much. But like having that and him learning like the genealogies of like all these families and how to relate people from here to there, it wasn't so much action. It was a lot more like thoughtful. And I think that's a huge strength of this book. And I can see why some people wouldn't like it. But for me, it was great. And getting that more spy, slow, methodical kind of Bond is a lot better than just like him running around underwater, like fighting people. I don't know. And that's maybe why I say this one has that charm, because it's missing the action, but I'm still getting like the positive, like thriller spy stuff. Now, this is obviously not a perfect book. So some of the things I didn't like, it's a James Bond book. So you're always going to have some of those like, Ian Flemingisms, as I like to call them, around like women, minorities, all that kind of stuff. If you're interested in the series, you already know what I'm talking about, and probably have a general idea of what I mean when it comes to that. I do also think, I did mention it as kind of a positive, but some of the stuff with Marc-Ange is, or Marc-Andre, however you say his name, is a little interesting to me. It just seems like something Bond shouldn't be doing, somebody he shouldn't be involved with. And it made me kind of question, it didn't make me question Bond, but I don't know, it was an aspect that I don't know if I was ready for. Being that intertangled with somebody who's kind of like a mobster gangster kind of thing, I don't know, it was interesting. And so, it's hard to say I didn't like it because it was a nice element to the story, but it almost didn't fit with the character to a certain extent where, it just kind of makes me question, what's going on there. I've mentioned a couple times that this isn't a super action-heavy book, but the end of this book is pretty much all action. That is really where it comes into. And some of it I liked, and some of it I didn't. Some of especially the end where James is kind of escaping his situation without getting too spoiler-filled, I kind of lost myself in the space, and it wasn't always super clear with who was doing what and what was happening. And that might just be a me thing, but it's not so poorly done that like, it's a huge negative. I did enjoy some of the action. I will spoil this. There is some funny like Roadrunner, Wild Coyote kind of mischief that goes on where they're racing away around this road and they're getting caught up to, and James stops the car, gets out, and turns a sign to, instead of pointing towards the detour, it points them off a cliff, and they go flying off. And that's kind of funny. I did enjoy that. But, other than that, there's some action in there that I didn't really need, and it kind of lost me a little bit with some of it. And the last thing I'll mention as a negative is I personally would have liked some more time with Tracy and Bond. This is the end of the video, pretty much so. Slight little spoiler warning here. But, Bond gets married in this book, and I would have liked to have seen them together a little bit more to make the end. This is actually a spoiler if you don't want to know what happens in this book. Definitely, go ahead and skip away. But, she dies at the end of this, and I think it would have had more emotional weight for me if we had got to see them together a little bit more. Now, obviously, I mean, it's sad. He did come to, like, you know, he got married. He wanted this and all this stuff, even though there's the weird, like, dowry, all that stuff with everything that happened. But I think if we could have gotten just a little bit more time of them enjoying each other together, which we get some, but I would have liked a little bit more, I think it would have made that emotional beat even that much more impactful than it was. So overall, I did end up giving this book a 4-star rating. I thought it was really good. I really liked it. This is definitely in the upper half of Bond books, but probably not all the way at the very, very top. It's probably this might be the dividing line of like the ones I really, really like and the ones that I just think are good. So yeah, 4 stars. I think the Blofeld trilogy, I'm hoping it ends well. You know, I think these 3 books, man, is going to be one of the better ones, even if I didn't love Thunderball as much as some of the other ones. But thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and have a good one.